It brings back a lot of memories, and I don't have any ill feelings any longer. I used to, but I don't any longer. I think what happened to me was destined. I had no hatred of the Germans. Didn't have it then, don't have it now. They were soldiers just like we were, doing somebody's command. No, I had no feelings one way or the other about them. I didn't hate them. They didn't hate me, I don't think. I'm glad I was able to serve. I'm glad I contributed a little bit to our victory, and which I knew was going to happen. I had no doubt in my mind ever.
Warning, the frontline testimony you're about to hear is, at times, extremely graphic. The realities of war are often difficult, but it's vitally important that these stories are told and the lessons are learned. Viewer discretion is advised.
Probably my most memorable experience of World War II was my capture and wounding and capture in this small house in France in the Vosges Mountains, November 9th, 1944. We had liberated that house from Germans before, then we ended up taking refuge in it when they counterattacked. And it was during that period of battle that I was wounded and subsequently became a prisoner of war. We had a firefight that lasted probably 30 minutes. In that firefight, some of us were wounded, and we ended up being prisoners of war. It happened. We accepted it, not an everyday occurrence, but we knew that it was going to happen, and it did to some of our fellow inmates, prisoners. All I know is that we didn't have as much room to move around in after the Battle of the Bulge. They brought these prisoners in, and I can't remember how many hundreds there were, but there was a lot of them that came into our camp. We went from sleeping one man in a bunk to two men in a bunk, and that was not an exciting time either.
What did you all have to stay warm in that winter?
Just the clothes we had on our bodies.
No blankets?
No. Oh, yeah, I had an army blanket. I did. I had one of my GI army blankets. I don't know how I managed to salvage that, but I did. I had it. And that's the only thing that, other than the clothes we wore every day, that was the only way we had to keep warm. I had to keep warm.
Were there any steps that you took to try to maintain some form of sanitation in the camp?
No, there wasn't any.
You had no way to wash your face or anything?
No. They had water. We get some water occasionally, and we could use that to wash with a little bit, but we had no soap. So water itself didn't help much.
So from the moment you joined the unit, really, to when you were liberated, not just from when you were captured, but the whole time?
No shower.
Yeah.
No clean clothes. No change of clothes. We got the Red Cross parcels various times. At one time, we were supposed to get I think a parcel a month, I believe it was. That was cut down to, well, sometimes it'd be 3 or 4 men to one parcel. And then we would decide among ourselves which food item we wanted to split up. Cigarettes were the big thing, of course, a good means of barter, and a lot of us smoked.
Including you?
Yeah, I smoked. Oh yeah. Yeah, I smoked.
What could you get with the cigarette?
About anything you wanted. they were invaluable. I don't. Food mostly is what we traded them for.
And this would be with other prisoners or the German guards?
Guards mostly, yeah.
And what kind of food would the guards give you, sir?
Bread mostly, bread. I don't remember seeing any kind of meat, but bread. There's very seldom a time that we were out on work details that we weren't interrupted by air raids. And when that happened, depending on where you were, the guards would see that you got some kind of a cover. So for that we were thankful. Once in a while you get hit by a stone. Mostly younger kids throw stones.
What was that like for you?
We accepted it. We were prisoners. They had control over us. They did anything they wanted to with us. So we accepted it. I don't remember that anybody was seriously injured by a stone, but most had a lot of bruises, I'm sure. I knew that we would prevail. I knew we would. It's just a matter of time. Just like being a prisoner. Most of us knew that was temporary. It wasn't going to last forever. The war was going to be over. We were going to win. We would be released and sent back home. So it wasn't a problem. We talked about that a lot, and I can't remember that I had any one particular food. It's just food general that was nourishing and tasted good.
How did you guys pass your time in camp?
Tried to sleep as much as we could. That was about it. Sleep and work. Mostly that was it. Once in a while they'd put us into a civilian house to clean it up. What little we could do. It was mostly wheelbarrow shovel work. Ruble in streets, in houses, clean it up. Anything that the German guards decided they wanted done, we would do. They would make us do. We did everything we could to deter the Germans. If we were put in a building that probably halfway demolished, we would disrupt telephone wires. We would break them with our work equipment and things like that. It made us feel better than it did to harm them, but it made us feel good to do things like that. Anything that would harm their war effort, we would do. They tried to save all the bricks from the building. The Germans did. The ones that were intact. We broke more bricks than we saved.
How did you get news?
News. There was a kind of an underground thing, and once in a while we'd get some news, mostly from new prisoners who came in. They would inform us of what was happening up to their capture. And so that's how we got the news, mostly from other prisoners. Some of those fellows that were with us were new. They just been transferred there as replacements, and I didn't know all of them. I don't remember any particular feelings about being on guard at night in combat. It was all the same. When you were in a unit, usually 2 or 3 were designated to try to stay awake at night. Wasn't always successful, but it has. I remember one time being in a bombed out house, and a pile of rubble all around the house was really demolished. And when we were cleaning it up with shovels, we came upon the body of a man that had been killed in a bombing raid. And I was the one that found him, and they made me go through his pockets and give him all the belongings he had. And one of the guards knew the man that had been killed, and he mentioned that to one of the other guards. Yeah. That's the only one experience I remember seeing a dead civilian, it was that particular one there. I knew a lot of others under the rubble, but that's the only one I saw.
What did he have in his pockets?
I can't remember. The usual things, I think a little money in there and a knife, probably a pocket knife. I don't remember anything else. Well, paper, there's some papers in there too. Took those, gave them to the guards.
I know you were in Company E. Were you in the rifle platoon or the weapons platoon, sir?
Rifle company.
Okay, so what weapon did you carry?
M1.
What did you think of the M1?
Good rifle. Good rifle. I was glad to have it. It worked well for me, and I depended on it. Yeah, it was a good rifle. Good rifle. I had no problem with mine.
Never jammed?
No, I didn't have any jams that I remember. No, I don't recall any problems with using that M1 rifle. It never caused me any problems.
I hit them. They fell.
And I was good with a rifle. And I don't mean that in a bragging, to be bragging about, but I was good, and I usually hit what I aimed at. And yeah, I did my share. During my capture, I had a defensive position in this French farmhouse by the window, and I was firing out of the window, and I was hit suddenly by fire from a MG-42 German machine gun in the left thigh. And the bullet is still in there. They wouldn't remove it because they said it would cause more damage removing it than they would leaving it there. So it didn't bother me that much anyway, so it's still in there, and it doesn't bother me. But it's a souvenir I bring with me everywhere I go. Obviously it hurt, but nothing that it was unbearable. It just happened. One hit me and the others missed me, to put it that way. It was a burst of machine gun fire, and one of them hit me. The others obviously didn't. I lost some blood, but not a lot. It was amazing that the way that wound was, that I didn't lose more blood, but apparently it didn't hit a major blood vessel, because the hemorrhage I had was minute, actually, compared to a lot of them. I was fortunate.
Wow. And so it's
still there.
In its entirety.
Oh yeah. It's been X-rayed. It's deep. It's right next to the femur, and that's deep. That's probably 3 or 4 inches deep. I don't know how many there were, but it was at least a platoon of Germans that overran our position, and we given very little choice as to our fate. And it was decided then that we should surrender. That we did. I was a private, so I did not have any decisions to make. The man in charge was a corporal, and he's the one that made the decisions about what we should do. And he was in charge, we followed him. So that's the way it was. I had plenty of ammunition. I wasn't running low that I remember. We didn't have an ammunition shortage, to put it that way. And I think that was true with the rest of my fellow soldiers that I was with in that building. One of my buddies put a first aid bandage around the wound, and then later that was replaced by another bandage, and eventually it healed in prison camp. Had no problem with it. They always say a change of weather. I don't know whether that's true or not, but it occasionally acts up a little.
So, but you never went to the hospital for it?
Oh, no.
What about after you were liberated? Did they look at it again?
It was X-rayed, and that's when they decided that it'd be better to leave it alone rather than try to remove it. Every month I get a compensation for it. No, it never actually hindered me from doing things that I wanted to do. Not that I remember, anyway. They were getting ready to throw grenades in through that window, and we knew we better get the hell out of there if we wanted to live. So we did. We left. Commandant. I felt shame, yeah. But I also was glad I was still alive. I'm glad I was able to serve. I'm glad I contributed a little bit to our victory, and which I knew was going to happen. I had no doubt in my mind ever.
What were your thoughts of the Germans when you were fighting them? I mean, what did you, at that time?
I had no hatred of the Germans. Didn't have it then, don't have it now. They were soldiers just like we were, doing somebody's command. No, I had no feelings one way or the other about them. I didn't hate them. They didn't hate me, I don't think. I never ran away from seeing a dead soldier, American soldier. No, I never did. Maybe I was a realist, but I accepted the fact that there's going to be casualties, and so that's it. I helped bandage a friend of mine, shot in the leg, with a band. I helped put a bandage on him, but that's the only time I remember bandaging any of my fellow soldiers. A lot of it was done by the medics. They'd already been there and done that. Actually, that first aid kit was not for you, it was for the other man.
Yeah.
He had one for you, you had one for him. I never remember being in a German minefield. I may have been and didn't know it, but I wasn't aware of it. The only time I remember is when we surrounded this one house and we took 9 German prisoners out of that house. That's the same house that we later took refuge in because of a counterattack. And so we exchanged prisoner for prisoner.
How many of you?
I think there was 7, I believe about 7, 6 or 7 of us. 2 of us were wounded. One of them had shrapnel on his jaw, and I got hit with machine gun fire in my left thigh. And there was a couple of guys that suffered from concussion from grenades. They were kind of out of it for a while. I remember throwing one grenade in the forest. Strangely enough, I threw the grenade at an encampment or an entrapment, foxhole-like, in the woods. Grenade hit a tree and bounced back and almost hit me. So that's the only grenade I ever remember throwing. And it could have been fatal for me because it exploded nearby when it hit the tree. So I gave up on grenades after that. I let someone else throw the damn things. There was an emplacement there, machine gun emplacement, and that's the same machine gun emplacement that hit me. And if my grenade throwing had been more accurate, I may not have been wounded. Had a crew of at least 2. There might have been a third one in there too, I'm not sure. 2 or 3 German soldiers occupied that position. Yeah. MG-42, that's the one that hit me. I had a couple, but when I was captured, they relieved me of my souvenirs. And I can't remember now what they were. Seems to me I had a pistol, but I threw it in the back of a Jeep, and I never saw it after that. The Jeep was supposed to take it back to headquarters and I'd pick it up later, but I never did. It probably didn't end up there anyway. April 29th, big old Sherman tank knocked the gate down, came right in. We heard sounds of a gunfire outside the camp, and the soldiers, I can't remember what outfit they were with, they came in. It was over very quickly. The guards put up a very little resistance, and the soldiers were in there just in a minute. And I don't remember any fatalities. I do know that one of the soldiers, one of the GIs, went to the pound where they kept the guard dogs, shot every one of them. German shepherds they were. Didn't upset me. I don't know about anybody else, because those dogs were mean. If you didn't get out, stand reveille, or not reveille, but
Roll call.
Roll call. They'd put the dogs in the barracks after, and those dogs were mean. They were trained to bite prisoners, and they did. Mean dogs. But they were trained that way. They were mean by nature. Weren't mean by nature. They were mean by training.
It looks like you got to meet General Patton. You saw him?
Yeah, oh yeah. He was on one of the tanks.
Who?
Patton came in on one of the tanks, standing upright in the, General George. He wasn't the first tank in the camp, but he was among the first. I never saw any tank in actual combat that I was involved in. I saw a lot of tanks, but I never saw one in action. No, I never did.
What were the tanks you saw?
Big, heavily armored. I don't know, Mark something, I suppose. We got K rations. They gave us K rations. We had some of those. And we didn't have any real food until a few days later when the GIs moved up, kitchen crews moved up. Then we started getting some real food. Mostly canned food, of course. GI trucks took us from prison camp to the Camp Lucky Strike. Yeah, and that's when I got a shower and clean clothes. Don't think I got a haircut there. That came later, I think. It had been a long time ago. Gosh, they took us by truck to Lehar, and that's where we boarded the ship for the United States, troop ship. I hadn't thought about these things for years. I haven't thought about it. About 7 days, I think it took us on the water to get back, and it landed in New York. Went to an army base in New York State. I remember I got off the train, and there was a taxi cab there, and one of my friends was the driver of the cab, and he picked me up and took me to my home where my mother was. My dad was not there; he was working in Dayton at the time, and he wasn't there then. But they did, and one of my brothers who was back from the war in Pacific, he was there too on furlough. And my younger brothers were there, my sister, of course my mother. So, happy reunion. Happy reunion. Got a lot of memories. So long ago. I think that right after I got home there was a display of some sort, fireworks display, and I trembled a lot during that. But I made it, as did many, many others. a couple of guys that I was close to in prison camp. I stayed in touch with. They're both gone now. One was from Gary, Indiana, and the other was from a little town in Ohio by the name of Byesville. Hollab was his last name. Stayed close with him for a while, but they're both gone now.
Were they also from the 3rd, or were they different units?
Oh yeah, different units, yeah. I went with them in organized military situations, just in prison camp. It brings back a lot of memories, and I don't have any ill feelings any longer. I used to, but I don't any longer. I think what happened to me was destined.
If you could talk to some future generations, what would you want to tell them? If you had great grandkids.
Live a good life. Be good to your country. Be good to your family. Honor them and praise them. A man who did his best. Whatever the best is, that's what I would try to do. I made a lot of mistakes in my life, but I think some of those were atoned by some good actions on my part. I think I did a few good things, if I could just remember when and where. Just being a good citizen, I try to do that. And if I ever had to pass anything on, that would be it. Be a good citizen. Listen to your elders. Listen to those who have more knowledge than you. Follow their advice and their dreams.
What was that last one?
And their dreams.